3 ACL tears during preseason? Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Strong Female Athlete podcast. I am back today solo, and I am recording on a Sunday right now, which is a little unusual because normally Sundays are my day to spend with my family and enjoy my time off. But my husband is out golfing today, so I figured, well, it's probably good to record a podcast right now because this topic is something I have been wanting to discuss at this moment in time because as I'm recording this, there are a lot of soccer players who are about to go into preseason for the fall season. So I'm recording this in mid-July, and I felt called to get this out there because I have seen disaster after disaster happen during preseasons where players are getting soft tissue injuries that shouldn't be happening. There's multiple ACL tears happening during the preseason, and not a lot of people are asking questions as to why are all these injuries happening during preseason? Well, I have the answer for you today, and it is a big problem. It is bad, and coaches, you need to listen up. And parents, you need to share and get this message out there because team coaches play a huge role in the health of the athlete and the risk during preseason with how they structure preseason, and do they program it gradually or do they just go 100 miles per hour right away? So I'm excited to get into this presentation today. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start off with a very basic question. I think this is very important to get out of the way first and for us to all just think logically. So, my question is, what is the purpose of preseason? Deeply ask yourself this question. So, preseason for most of our young soccer players, even also our college soccer players, is a week long, maybe for some a week and a half or 2 weeks long. But what is the purpose of that 1 to 2 weeks? Is it to totally obliterate our players? Is it to get them into top shape? What is the purpose of preseason? Well, I can tell you the purpose of preseason is not fitness testing. And there are a lot of coaches out there, and I'm not just talking in soccer. This can apply to all sports. The purpose should not be fitness testing because it is impossible to get our athletes into shape and to really know how they're going to do in a 90-minute soccer game, for example, by doing these arbitrary fitness tests off the ball. And I would argue you do not need to do endless fitness tests, and we'll talk about my recommendations at the end of this, but fitness testing is actually a waste of our preseason because the purpose of preseason should be number one, build team chemistry. So usually during a preseason, there might be a handful of new players on the team. In the youth space, in the college space, you have incoming freshmen coming in high school soccer as well. You want to get the entire team on the same page, build team chemistry and make sure the team is getting along. We're doing team building activities and we're building that foundation that supports performance and connection in the first match to come. The second is to slowly build fitness. Now, I don't believe players should be at their peak during preseason. Yes, you should come in shape, but they don't need to be at their peak because it's the start of the season. We don't need them to be at their best because when we look at the whole picture, the macro level of the year that is year-round soccer, we want them to slowly build over time and peak at the right moments and to be able to maintain that. So we have to slowly build that fitness. And we want to build that fitness with drills, not tests, that are soccer specific or get them ready for that first game. So we're slowly building fitness through small-sided games because small-sided games contain the change of direction component, the repeat sprint ability, but also the cognitive component of soccer and being able to make fast decisions. So we want to slowly build that fitness with sport-specific drills. We also want to objectively manage load. And I will tell you, not a lot of coaches are prescribing loads with intention. They're just giving a jumble of fitness tests, a jumble of sprints or suicides or shuttle runs, and they're not thinking it through with how much distance are they covering? Am I spiking the distance too much too soon? Am I progressing the distance over time? Am I progressing in volume and intensity and manipulating my rest times? Not a lot of coaches are thinking it through. They're just having their players get out there and just run. They're just running, 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 and there's no objective data behind it. There's no objective progression. Now, I know not every youth soccer club or every player has access to a GPS. There are a lot of very accessible ones nowadays. I've used Beyond Pulse to understand the workload of the conditioning drills that I'm doing and how most players respond to them. But you can just be as simple as ratings of perceived exertion, asking your players how would they rate that session on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most intense and 1 being the easiest. So you can do that at the very least. So you have to somehow objectively manage load. You also want to use preseason to work on tactics and formation. We are wasting our time if we're doing a fitness test, say a team practices 4 days a week in preseason. We're wasting our time if we're doing a fitness test all 4 days when we can be spending that precious time getting our team ready with formation, who's playing what position, who's taking the set pieces, who's going to sub in for what position, who's going to be ready to come off the bench, and just things that are logical to get ready for the first game, the first few games of the season. And we're also wasting our time if coaches are doing fitness testing before a soccer practice. So yes, maybe they are working on formations and tactics, but they're doing that fitness testing beforehand. And that's a problem because you're fatiguing your players. So how locked in are they going to be when it matters, when you need to explain to them the formation and you need their complete focus for the session? Why tire them out with arbitrary fitness tests before you go over tactics and formation? And even technical training, technique is going to break down. Maybe their first touch isn't as sharp. Maybe they're not passing at pace. Maybe they're not passing at the correct foot at the correct time. You don't want to tire them out for that. So you have to really be intentional with what you're working on during preseason because some youth teams only have a week preseason, 2 weeks preseason. So we want to make the most of our time. Again, we have to prepare for the first match. So if we're wasting doing fitness testing, if we're fatiguing our players during fitness testing, then are we really preparing them for that first match? Are they really ready technically and tactically because that's what soccer is? Are they healthy going into that first match? And I'm going to talk about injuries later in this presentation, but a lot of players are getting soft tissue injuries because they're in a constant state of fatigue during preseason and they just break down and they can't even play the first match because they're injured. So we have to really think, are we preparing for that first match? Preseason also sets the tone for the rest of the season. You lay out expectations. It should still be challenging, but it should be challenging in a way that is not running a million miles a minute right on day one, but it sets the tone for, okay, we are going to progress this season. We're going to progress in fitness. The goal is not to be peak right now, but the goal is to keep going up and up and up gradually. You're setting the tone for the season. You're letting your players know what the plan is. And you're also letting your players know that, hey, I'm going to take care of you because the last one here is the purpose of preseason is first and foremost the health of the athlete. So you're setting the tone for the rest of the season by having a healthy team for the rest of the season. So these are the sole purposes of preseason, not fitness testing that really doesn't say a lot about how a player can play the full 90-minute game. Most fitness testing is very mindless. They're not reacting to anything. They're not making decisions because it's a lot of runs or 3-mile jogs. There's no cognitive component. There's no cognitive load to prepare them for soccer. So it's a waste of time. And I'll talk about my experience in college when we got rid of our fitness test. So stay tuned.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Freelap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Freelap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Freelap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing.
Okay, so why do so many injuries happen in preseason? Well, usually girls will go into preseason and that first night back, they do a 3-mile run. And then after that, they have a 2-hour practice, and their bodies weren't built up to handle that. And it's not that they didn't come in shape. A lot of them actually train during the summer. A lot of them train to be able to play the game of soccer and to be soccer fit, not stupid fit, not unnecessary fitness tests, endless running fit that coaches have them doing. So when that load spikes so much because no coaches are planning the load, no one's objectively measuring it, they're just giving tons of sprints, sometimes 50 plus sprints, and just twice as much that's happening in a game, that load, when it's greater than the tolerance that the muscles can handle, that equals injury. So the muscles aren't able to tolerate that load because the brain can't send the signal to the muscles to contract to protect the joints. So the nervous system is totally wiped out when athletes aren't built up enough or they're in a state of fatigue. Here's another thing that is going to blow your mind. So I think a lot of coaches think that when players get back to preseason, they're like, oh, we need to get our players fit. We need to get ready for that first game. Well, I hate to break it to you. Fitness is not built in a week's time. And this is not opinion. This is an objective fact. If I asked you as a parent or as a soccer coach listening, if I asked you, okay, you need to run a marathon in a week. A marathon is 26.2 miles. Would you be able to get ready for that marathon in 1 week? No. So the graph here on the left, this is the wrong way to train for the marathon. So on day 1, you run 2 miles, then maybe a few days later, you jump it up to 26 miles. Are you built up to handle that 26 miles yet? Have your muscles slowly adapted over time and built up that tolerance to that much running? No. If you jump from just running 2 miles in training, then to 26 miles, your muscles are going to be extremely sore. You're not going to be able to walk for days. And you might have a soft tissue injury. You might have something that sustains even longer. So we want preseason to look more like a just nice gradual curve where we're slowly easing into that soccer fitness. We're not going 26 miles right off the bat and running a marathon right away. We have to train for the long term. And fitness it's intuitive to people, right? I would never ask a 10-year-old who's new to weightlifting, okay, you got to deadlift 300 pounds tomorrow. It's the same concept. We would never do something like that without a proper buildup and progression to get to that 300-pound point. So really keep this in mind that fitness is not built in a week's time, and it's also not built in 2 weeks' time. So if you have a 2-week season, I hate to break it to you, that's still not enough time either. So we have to really encourage our athletes that they have to come in shape and do something in the summer so that they are ready to come into preseason. So when I was at Johns Hopkins University, I realized that you can still come in the best shape possible, but if your coach is doing endless fitness tests that aren't well progressed, and it's just a ton of random running with no rhyme or reason or progression. Even the strongest and the most in shape can get hurt or have chronic muscle soreness due to these load spikes, these huge load spikes. So when I was going into freshman season at Johns Hopkins University, I did summer strength and conditioning. I built up over 3 months' time. I did a full off-season template like I do now with my girls. We trained a couple times a week in the weight room and then a couple times a week out on the field doing soccer specific conditioning. So repeat sprints, change of direction. We did a lot of speed endurance. We did a lot of tempo runs. We had a good aerobic base. So we trained all energy systems for soccer. I also played pickup soccer a few times a week, so I got in my small-sided game conditioning, and I was playing against Division I men's soccer players in these small-sided games. So I went into Hopkins freshman season in such good shape, but I still thought the endless fitness tests were freaking hard. Did I get top three on all of them? Yes, I was in the top on all of these fitness tests, but we did them on back-to-back days. The first day was probably the craziest run we did. It was like 20 minutes straight of doing full field laps, and it wasn't a jog, it was a full field sprint for time. Then we had to sprint around the field 2 times. Then we had to do half field suicides. Then we had to sprint around the field again 2 more times, and that was just day one. And then after that, in the same day, we had two soccer practices, one midday and one at night. So it was just a huge spike in load that like even I wasn't used to, even though I had trained in the summer. So it was still a struggle for me because I was sore that whole week. I felt in shape to play soccer when it mattered at the 11v11 scrimmages. I was in shape to play, but I'm not gonna lie, I was really sore that whole week. And the second day of our fitness test, we did Man United. So we were doing full field sprints with a fast jog back recovery and repeat that 10 times. And then after that, same thing, midday soccer session, evening soccer session. Then the third day, we did the beep test. So it was just so much unnecessary running that even though I did summer strength and conditioning, like I wasn't prepared for that amount of nonsense. So yeah, it was really crazy. And I was very lucky not to get hurt. I think my summer strength and conditioning gave me a fighting chance. And I also think I had some luck on my side because the amount of running our coach gave us was ridiculous. But I will say, we had two girls in that preseason tear their ACL on the third day of preseason. And they also were very strong girls and they also had trained over the summer. It's not like they didn't do anything over the summer. It's that the fact that our Hopkins team had 4 high intensity days in a row with so much running on that third day, their muscles just broke down and they couldn't protect the knee joint anymore. So we had two ACL injuries during preseason. And then I've also talked to many other college girls. I had Rachel Nuzzles on my podcast a few years ago. She played at Wake Forest and it was worse there. They did what we did times 10. And if you didn't pass these fitness tests, then you had to keep running them again and continuing to get more out of shape because you were so fatigued. And she told me her team had 3 ACLs that season. We can't ignore the fact that constantly doing high intensity days in a row causes injury, and fatigue is the enemy. We do not want our athletes to always be in a state of fatigue. We have to have proper buildup of fitness. We have to have recovery days. We have to have high intensity days, then low intensity days, and have it oscillate so that we're not always high all the time. So it just blows my mind that people in the youth soccer space aren't talking about this. And I've gone all the way up to my C license, which is pretty far up there in the coaching licenses. And we barely glossed over any of this. Like we talked about just the normal tactical and technical stuff, but I think when we're talking about conditioning and preseason, we have to bring that into the conversation with technical and tactical. and making sure that we are writing our small-sided games so that we are giving our athletes a good conditioning effect, or we're giving them more of a recovery or light to moderate day within small-sided games. So yeah, it's crazy they didn't even really touch on it in the C licenses, but I'll touch on education at the end of this in my recommendations. Okay, here's a common one, but we don't want our players to do nothing all summer. That's the one excuse I get from coaches who want to program all these fitness tests because they're just so scared that their players are going to sit around and plop on a couch all summer. Well, if you have to lead with fear like this, I question if you're a leader. So let's go over the first one. I don't think you need endless fitness tests, especially the non-soccer specific tests. So the 3 mile run, even the 1 mile one. Raymond Verheyen says it best, one of the best soccer fitness coaches in the world. But he said it best, soccer is not played at one tempo. So why are we having our athletes do fitness tests at one tempo in one line? It doesn't tell us anything about the soccer player that they're going to be. Can they make fast decisions? Can they change direction? Can they have repeat sprint ability? Can they keep their speed in the second half and not tire out? I had a girl on my Hopkins team who we also did a long distance test. I totally forgot about that. We had a fourth fitness test. Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. I think I repressed it because it was so traumatic. But we had a girl who just crushed the long distance test, but she didn't start a single game all season. She hardly saw the field because she couldn't play soccer. She could just run distance, nothing more. So coaches who threaten their players with, well, you're going to lose your starting position if you don't pass all the fitness tests. Well, what are your fitness tests measuring? Do they measure soccer fitness? Because soccer fitness is the combination of the physical and the cognitive load. So is it measuring change of direction? Is it measuring decision making? Is it measuring being able to anticipate and sprint onto the ball? So really ask yourself, what fitness tests are you even picking? And that brings me to my second point. Let small-sided games expose girls instead. I would argue you don't need fitness tests at all. When you have players come back to preseason and you play a 1v1, for example, on a large pitch, that exposes who's in shape. Okay, or a 2v2 or a 4v4 on a large pitch. Or when you open it up to 11v11, that exposes who has that speed endurance, who can continually get back on defense and get up the field. I would argue you don't need fitness tests at all. And then another one is, will they really get out of shape in the summer? Okay, so if we're talking about our ECNL girls, our GA girls who just finished their season, so a lot of girls just finished on July 3rd this year, so they have about 2 to 3 weeks off until preseason. Are they really going to get out of shape in the next 2 to 3 weeks? I don't think so. And then I also would argue most players aren't taking off in the summer anyway, so there's nothing to worry about. A lot of soccer players are still doing skills training. A lot of soccer players have performance coaches now. A lot of soccer players are trying other sports and getting outside. We are doubting kids a lot here, but I would argue kids don't take off enough. And I would also say motivation to stay fit starts with your culture. It shouldn't start with fear. So, is your culture clear? Are your expectations clear? And this isn't something you just go over before summer starts and you don't see them for 2 months. This is something you reinforce year round. The expectation of doing work on your own, the expectation of working on your speed and staying strong and becoming best friends with the ball and playing pickup soccer. It starts with culture, not fear. Not fear before summer. Well, oh, you guys aren't going to start if you don't pass these fitness tests, or you guys are going to die during preseason because we're going to do 10 fitness tests. I've heard that one too. I've literally heard my girls tell me that their coach said to them they're going to die during preseason. Wait, isn't the purpose of preseason to be ready for the first match? Do we really want these girls to die? Playing time and starting can be motivation enough. When I went into senior year at Hopkins, our coach finally got rid of all the fitness tests because he realized that there were a ton of injuries happening during preseason, and we were also wasting away time when we could have been working on our team tactics, when we could have been working more on technical for the game of soccer. And he got rid of all the fitness tests, and guess what? We all still came in top shape. We all still did something during the summer because the playing time and the not losing our starting positions was motivation enough. And there will be, I promise you, there will be a handful or more girls on your team who are motivated by that. And I think a lot of players are. And then maybe if you have one or two that don't come in shape because it's not worth it to them, then they're not going to be on the team next year. It's as simple as that. You can pick up new players. It's competitive out there. So it's on the girls to decide, okay, is playing time important to me? Is moving up and contributing to my team important to me? That is motivation enough. I know so many girls who get their fitness packets from their coaches for the summer and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. And it like deters their motivation. And I've already talked about this, but arbitrary fitness tests shouldn't determine starters. Again, we had a long distance runner who crushed our long distance test. She hardly saw the field, but the rest of us did because we could play the game of soccer. We could last the 90 minutes. We could sprint, we could cut, we could recover quickly, we could keep our speed in the second half, we could keep our speed in overtime. A lot of fitness tests don't show that. Okay, and if coaches are really worried about players not doing anything during the summer, please have a network of us performance coaches. Refer them out. Refer your players out to them. Don't try to be the expert coming up with fitness tests and a packet that doesn't even work on soccer fitness, that doesn't even progress load properly. You have to come to a point where you have to outsource this because performance coaches, a lot of them are very well versed in the proper progression of load. And when I start my summer off-season program with my girls, we started at the end of May, actually. So we've been at this for over 2 months at this point, and we started at the end of May. Did we start with hardcore change of direction, shuttle run conditioning right away? No, we started general because we needed somewhere to progress and go to. I started with the basics. I started with tempo runs. I started with more linear runs. Then we progressed it to a side shuffle to sprint. Then we progressed it to a double side shuffle to sprint. Then we progressed it to 180-degree turns and 360-degree turns. So it has to be a progression. There has to be a rhyme or reason behind it. And every conditioning drill I've designed, I've tracked with GPS. I have a handful of my players wearing GPS, and I look at what their workload is. Is it too high for the day? Did I push them enough? Or do we need to cut back a little bit? Do we go too hard the first week? So we're objectively measuring this too. Again, I get not everyone has access to GPS, but there's some great ones out there that aren't that expensive. I like to use Beyond Pulse. If you want to use RPE, there's also the Soccer Pulse app, which is really great. So I recommend you have something objective to look at because you don't want your players on day one to feel like, oh my gosh, this was the hardest thing ever. Like we were not ready for this at all. No, you want to really ease them into it because again, if that load spikes too fast, that's when we have problems. That equals injury. The muscles have to be given time to adapt. Okay, so here are my preseason recommendations. I personally don't like fitness tests. If you are going to do one, just pick one and move on, but you need to have something objective to be able to measure it. So the first day, don't kill your athletes. Don't obliterate them. Again, set the tone for the season. Hey, we're going to focus on team bonding within small-sided games or fun icebreakers. And we want to make sure that culture is key here because that's what keeps us the team healthy throughout the rest of the season, the emotional health of the team. So we want to bond, make sure the new players are acclimated with the old players and make sure everyone's comfortable. Enough of these clicks. So that should be priority on day one. Then the second day, we're slowly easing into it. We're slowly ramping up intensity. Maybe do a light technical session. Maybe do light small-sided games with some target or some neutral players. There's ways to manipulate intensity within small-sided games. A lot of you coaches listening do a great job of it. So really lean into that. There are a lot of people on the internet talking about small-sided game design. So there's information out there on how to do this. Third, we can progress on the third day to moderate small-sided conditioning. So maybe we're getting rid of the neutral players. Maybe we're making the pitch just a little bit bigger on that third day and slowly ramping it up. Okay, since it was a moderate day and then the next day is going to be high intensity, maybe we should all take a day off in between. So before the fourth day, give a full recovery day. So the fourth day, now maybe we start to go up to that high intensity small sided conditioning. So we make the pitch even larger when we have less players on the pitch. We have no goalkeepers. We have the ball constantly in play. Maybe there's shorter rest times in between bouts. So there's ways to make small-sided games very intense and to also have a great conditioning effect, a soccer conditioning effect, where the heart rate is getting up, they're getting high-speed runs, they're getting change of direction, but most importantly, they're also getting that thinking component because thinking is a part of load in soccer. I can tell you all the running off the ball, all the mile runs, it's not preparing players for that thinking load. Remember, preseason is meant to prepare players for the first match. What are they about to enter into? Well, it's not just running, it's running and thinking. So stop doing only off the ball running. It is a waste of time. There's a time and place to train it in isolation with a performance coach, but not during preseason when you have the whole team there. You got all the balls, you have a soccer field, you have all the goals. Why would you waste all that? When you have everyone there, just start playing soccer and getting soccer fit. Okay. And then after that high intensity day, you have to take off. Okay. So this is how players get injured in preseason is they have 4 high intensity days in a row. So what happens when we have high days in a row, aka obliterate my players mode? A lot of coaches are in that mindset during preseason. How can I make my players die? I know it sounds so messed up, but it's like very true. I've heard these things. I'm in the youth space on a daily basis. I think it gets crazier, the stuff I hear, but there are coaches out there who just want to obliterate their players during preseason. But what happens when we have 4, even 3 high intensity days in a row? Well, the nervous system breaks down and the brain is fatigued. So, what happens is the brain can't send a fast enough signal to the muscles to protect the knee joint or to protect any joint, ankle, whatever. But I'm talking about knee because we talk a lot about ACLs, meniscus, patellar dislocations in soccer. So, if the brain is burned out from all these high intensity days and endless running and endless fitness tests from soccer coach, then that signal to the muscles to contract is not going to make it in time. Even with girls who did their strength training, they are still susceptible if load is not considered by their coach. Strength training gives them a fighting chance, which helped me in my preseason, but the load part from coaches and the practice design plays a huge role in injury. We need all of it. We need the strength piece, we need the conditioning piece, we need the load management piece from the coaches in preseason, not being stupid about 3 to 4 high intensity days in a row, and we need that recovery. It all goes into injury reduction. I think soccer coaches play a bigger role in injury risk than the performance coach because soccer coaches during the season see the players more. So if soccer coaches aren't smart with planning load, don't be surprised if even the strongest get hurt. One thing that makes me so mad is if a girl gets hurt in preseason, a coach will accuse her, well, you didn't prepare enough in the summer. No, she did. you just spiked her load way too much more than she could handle, and you had no rhyme or reason behind your conditioning. She prepared. You didn't prepare. You were lazy and you didn't objectively manage load. So don't let coaches say that to your daughter. You can tell this frustrates me. So if you're a coach and you have a handful of girls who are always sore, injured, and slow during preseason, you have to ask yourself, what have I done? It's in your hands. And look, lack of education is not an excuse anymore from coaches. There's plenty of education out there on proper conditioning, proper progression of conditioning, load management, the importance of recovery, the importance of having a high intensity day, then a low intensity, then a medium intensity day, and not doing high all the time. There's plenty of information on how to make small-sided games less or more intense to get a good conditioning effect. Lack of education is not an excuse for coaches anymore. So if coaches are doing nonsense during preseason, like endless running and endless fitness tests off the ball that have nothing to do with soccer, they're being lazy and they haven't really educated themselves to become better at their craft. Now, I'm going to leave the coaches and the parents too if you want to learn. I find my audience of parents is so with it. Like, I think parents know a lot right now because they are researchers. They're hungry for information. They want their kids to be healthy. They want their kids to get better. My audience of parents is so dialed in and they get it. I do have a few coaches who listen, who I've talked to, who are also super locked in, but it's few and far between. And this is not a thing with like performance coaches versus coaches. I'm just calling it for what it is because I see nonsense by even just licensed coaches, and they're not continuing to educate themselves and master their crafts on proper soccer fitness and preseason program design and practice small-sided game design to keep their players healthy and ready for games. Because isn't that the goal of not just preseason, but the whole season, to be ready for match day, to be well recovered, to not be in a state of fatigue, to keep our players healthy? So these are just some resources I have. Raymond Verheyen is a huge one for me for what soccer fitness really means and how to become truly soccer fit to play the full 90-minute game. Todd Bean is amazing with tactical and technical sharpness and technical skill within a tactical context. He's really big on opposed training, small-sided game training. Soccer science is like the Bible of small-sided game program design, soccer fitness program design by Tony Strodwick, former Manchester United head of performance. He has a great infographic in that book on how each small-sided game trains different energy systems, whether it's aerobic, anaerobic, speed, and what work to rest times are good. And then I mentioned if you don't have access to GPS systems like Beyond Pulse, although I do recommend them, the Soccer Pulse app created by Matt Danaher, a really amazing resource on getting a feel for what your player's rating of perceived exertion is from your practice sessions. So you want it to be tracked over a long period of time, because what you don't want to do is have your players on day one of preseason be like a 10. Okay, you want them to slowly work up to that, but you also don't want to really undertrain them. So undertraining is just as much as a problem too. You don't want them to be constantly a 1 out of 10 for 2 weeks of preseason, and then the first game it's like, whoa, 10 out of 10. You want to make sure you slowly build that up. So you have to build up that load for that first match day. So you don't want to do low, low, low days all the time, but on the opposite end, you can't do that high, high, high all the time because of that fatigue causing injury. So there's a balance, and the only way to really understand it is to record it, track it, measure it. And I think the greatest technology too is just communicating with your players. I communicate with my girls all the time. Hey, how'd you feel after yesterday's session? How do you feel today? And it's a constant conversation. I think sometimes coaches tend to just ignore the fact that there's a human there too, and there's a lot of impact on load, so you have to really communicate with your players. So, thank you guys for listening. I know this was a lot, and I'm very passionate about this because I've just seen over all the years I've been doing this, the majority of injuries happen during preseason. And it makes a lot of sense because girls aren't prepared to handle the excessive running and the unplanned running and coaches just coming up with random numbers of sprints. Like no one's prepared or built up for it. So if I can give any advice to coaches is to really just ease players in that preseason, slowly build up their tolerance to load, get them ready for match day, make sure they're all going in healthy because if you're not healthy, then you're not ready for match day. And then for parents, just making sure in the summer your girls are doing their strength, speed, and conditioning because sometimes coaches don't change their minds on how they run their preseason. And I think that strength, speed, and conditioning piece at least gives these girls a fighting chance to go into that nonsense that is the spike and load that coaches are programming. So make sure your girls are doing that in the summer, at least for a 2 to 3 month program, because they need time to build up fitness. When I have players come to me and they say, hey, we want to get in shape in the last 3 weeks of summer, and I'm like, well, I can't. I'm honest with them. I'm like, hey, I'll assess you, but I can't promise you're gonna be in shape. You have to stick with this during the season if you want to see any conditioning adaptation, any speed or strength adaptation. You can't just train with me for 3 weeks and then call it a day and think you got better. That's not how adaptation works. So we have to really think of all this as the long game and be as consistent as possible. And we always have to just come back to the basics, the basic principles of training and progressing and recovering and managing load. And then also the nutrition piece, making sure that you're giving the body energy to be able to handle these high loads and eating more than you think you need. I think a lot of girls don't realize they're under eating, but even eat more because you're expending a lot in preseason. You're expending a lot during the season too. So you have to stay on top of your nutrition as well. All right, I'm going to sign off, guys. It is Sunday and the women's Euro is on, and I'm just going to enjoy my Sunday, but really glad I got this out there and I hope this helped.